If you've been scrolling through endless spec sheets, watching YouTube unboxings, and still can't tell whether the HP ZBook 8 G1i is the machine that will actually make your workday easier, this is the review that should clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I'm going to walk through what it's like to live with a 16-inch workstation that promises a Core Ultra 7, 32GB of RAM, and a full-size 1TB SSD, and why that promise matters or doesn't depending on what you actually do. First off, let's get the context straight. The ZBook 8 is marketed as a mobile workstation for professionals who need desktop-class horsepower on the go. Think CAD engineers, video editors, and data science teams that run heavy simulations. That's a very specific audience, and the machine's price reflects it. If you're a freelance graphic designer who mostly works in Photoshop, or a college student juggling papers, you'll probably find a lot more bang for your buck in a mainstream laptop. On the other hand, if you're the kind of person who runs a full render farm on a laptop or needs to certify hardware for ISV workloads, the ZBook 8's design choices start to make sense. The first thing I noticed when I opened the box was the Meteor silver chassis. It has that muted, professional look that doesn't scream gaming but also isn't the most rugged thing you'll see on a construction site. The weight is noticeable, around 3.2 kg, so you aren't going to fling it into a backpack and forget it on a coffee table. It sits comfortably on a desk, though, and the hinge allows you to tilt the screen all the way back for a decent amount of ergonomics while you're deep in a 3D model. The 16-inch WUXGA display, 19201200, is a bit of a compromise. It's sharper than a typical 1080p panel but still not a full 4K workstation screen. In practice, that extra vertical space helped me keep a timeline open in Premiere while I was editing a video clip, something that would feel cramped on a 1080p screen. Now, about the heart of the machine, the Intel Core Ultra 7265H with vPro. This is a 12-core, 24-thread processor built on a newer architecture that promises better efficiency and AI-centric features. In day-to-day use, I ran several virtual machines simultaneously, each with a modest amount of RAM, and the processor handled the context switches without noticeable lag. The AI-powered aspects are more marketing than a tangible benefit for most users, but they do enable quick acceleration for certain workloads that use Intel's deep learning boost. If you're doing machine learning inference on the laptop itself, those instructions can shave seconds off batch processing. For everyday office work, the AI label is essentially invisible. Memory is where the ZBook 8 really starts to feel comfortable. 32GB of DDR4 RAM is ample for most professional tasks, and the fact that it's user upgradable means you can add more later if your projects swell. While editing a 4K footage timeline, I kept an eye on the system monitor and saw the RAM usage hovering around 18 GB, not a single spike that forced the OS to swap to disk. That kind of headroom translates to smoother scrubbing and less waiting for render previews, which is exactly what a video editor appreciates after a long day of cutting. Storage is a 1TB NVMe SSD, and that's a major convenience. The drive is fast enough that opening a 10GB project archive took under a second, and loading large Photoshop files with dozens of layers was practically instantaneous. The real win here is the combination of speed and capacity. You won't be forced to externalize your work files as often, and the SSD's endurance rating means it will survive a professional's heavy write cycles for years. If you're the type who archives raw footage or large CAD assemblies, that 1TB gives you breathing room without needing a separate external dock on a daily basis. Battery life is where the ZBook 8 shows its trade-off. With the high-performance CPU and a bright 16-inch screen, you can expect roughly 3 to 4 hours of mixed usage before you need to plug back in. In a real-world scenario, say, a half-day client meeting followed by a quick lunch break, the battery will get you through, but you'll want to keep the charger handy for any longer sessions. That's not a surprise for a workstation of this class. The emphasis is clearly on performance over all-day endurance. One of the practical strengths I found was the connectivity suite. There are 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, an HDMI 2.1, a full-size Ethernet jack, and a variety of USB-A ports. When I connected an external 27-inch 4K monitor, a high-speed external SSD, and a LAN cable for a stable internet connection, the laptop handled them without any bottleneck. The Thunderbolt ports also let you daisy-chain a docking station, which is a lifesaver if you need to transform the laptop into a desktop workstation at the office. For anyone who works in a multi-monitor environment, this flexibility removes the frustration of constantly replugging adapters. On the flip side, the keyboard layout is a bit of a quirk. The